opportunities that you give us in these days. Still, we have liberty to be able to work and to be able to study and prepare, and we thank you for those open doors. Be with us now as we explore and learn about mission aviation and how we can possibly train and be missionary pilots. Be with us now and direct our thoughts, minds, and ideas. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. My father was the first pastor pilot employed by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. The General Conference in the early 70s, 60s and 70s knew they needed aviation, and we had several other missionaries that were developing aviation ideas. During the 60s it began, and then in the 70s it grew rapidly, and by the late 70s, early 80s, there were 30 airplanes functioning in the mission field in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. They involved each division, and the General Conference held on very closely to the regulations controlling aviation to maintain them safe. All missionary pilots had to be trained by Andrews University, by the chief pilot designated by the General Conference. They had to be approved. It was all centralized. And then by 1985 or so, it began to die everywhere. And we began to close programs. What had changed? First of all, in the 60s and 70s, most administrators in the different divisions were either European or North Americans. And we have a mentality of using technology to go out and do the impossible. But by the time we got to the 80s, almost all administrators were local. So in Africa, they had African administrators. And in South America, they had South American administrators. And what happened is that they started looking at the amount of money they had. By the way, when you had an American administrator, then they always were able to get money from North America to help them with their work. When you had a German or an Austrian or a European administrator, they were always at home telling their stories around, and they had the support of the home divisions to help them with their work overseas. And at the General Conference, naturally, they all said, well, we got to support our divisions. But when the local divisions began to develop their own pastors and presidents, and at the conference level, the mission level, then the unions and the division, then what happened was the General Conference changed its way of working. It wasn't the proper way, in my opinion, but they decided, well, now that you have your own administrators, do your own thing. And that was a sad decision, because both Europe and North America reduced their giving overseas. And North America is more guilty than anyone, because it had more money than anyone. And North America began to spend its money at home. And they said, let Africa take care of itself. Let Asia take care of itself. South America can take care of itself, Inter-America. And North America will take care of itself. And so all the monies were developed on spending it on ourselves in North America. Very little money went overseas. The amount of giving went from about of a dollar bill that was given in offering in North America, about 30% of that was sent to the mission field. Today, less than 1 cent of monies given in North America goes to mission work overseas. Okay, these are from statistics published by the General Conference. I don't know the exact numbers, because I tend to look at it, be impressed by the big picture, then I forget the little numbers. But it's gone down to just real small part. So when you give $1 in the offering for missions, most of it stays at home. Now, it's going up again. There's a focus on missions, and it's increasing, and this is good. And I'm not sure what the latest figures are. But whenever you don't give to overseas, Sister White said, the health of the work at home depends on how we support the work in far-off countries. So now the General Conference began to shut aviation programs around the world. The local administrator said, if I have to spend money on an airplane or spend it on evangelism in a city, I would rather do evangelism in a city and reach more people for the same money. And so the programs began to close. South America closed all the programs while I was working down there. Inter-America closed all of their programs. Asia began to close off, but finally the programs there said, well, let's make them self-supporting. Let's do air taxi work to pay for them. So Indonesia still has airplanes. Papua New Guinea still has airplanes. There's one airplane left in Mexico. And that's, if you want to work for the church as a mission pilot, you have to compete for 3 positions in Indonesia, 3 positions in Papua New Guinea, and 1 position in Mexico. That's it. And so, what's the use of having 30 mission pilot training? There's no jobs. And so for a long period, people would say, well, don't train as a pilot. There's just no jobs available. And so then 15 years ago, I told my wife, not only do we want to do an experiment of faith, we want to create opportunities for mission aviation. It's needed more than ever before. I want to assure you that it's desperately needed. Because it's getting more and more dangerous to travel by land. There's guerrilla warfares in some countries. You have to fly overhead to be able to reach there and back out. So sometimes missionaries are way out there and they can't get back. Or simply an airplane is the only way. And if you pay an air taxi, it's very expensive. But if you have your own airplane, like most of us drove in our own cars here. But what if you had a taxi bring you from town? And every time you needed to go, you called a taxi. Wouldn't that be expensive? You could hardly afford it. In Miami one day, I got a taxi and I made a 2-hour trip to pick up all the things. It cost me $100 for 2 hours. Yeah, that's probably cheap. Yeah, that's probably cheap. In Brazil, I made one trip one time, a short trip, $18, just for a little short trip. And that was 10 minutes. So it's, in reality, if in Europe, it's probably much more expensive than that. So if you have to depend on a taxi everywhere, it's the same problem with air taxi. It's very expensive. If you have your own airplane that comes and goes, you just normally do the circuit and you take care of maintenance and expenses, but it requires infrastructure. One other thing the General Conference did is that the General Conference became more and more allergic to liability. You know what the word liability means? Risk. They developed a department called risk management. And risk management basically pretty well controls, influences is a better term, pretty well influences the decisions made at the General Conference, because if it's going to be too high risk, we just don't do it. Someday, well, I asked myself, it's not wrong to have risk management, but what if they had risk management in Jesus' time? The disciples, don't go there. Paul, don't go there. Don't go there. You might get beaten. You might get put in prison. You might get killed. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's high risk. So risk management is kind of an outgrowth of the mentality of today's age. We have insurance on the house. We have insurance on the car. We have insurance everywhere. Airplanes have insurance. So the General Conference was afraid of the risk of an accident. So they require their airplanes to carry $50 million of liability insurance. Whereas the local air taxi airplanes may only have 100,000 or 1 million. So you're carrying 50 times more insurance on the airplane in case there's an accident and the General Conference needs to be covered, the world needs to be covered. So it just made it so heavy, even to operate an airplane, that they just closed programs everywhere. But there was a need. The need is increasing. What do we need to do? Well, let's start with a different scenario. Why don't we have volunteer mission aviation? In volunteer, the pilot works as a volunteer. There's no salary, there's no benefits, there's no insurance, there's no retirement. Just like the disciples did. Let's just go do it. This insurance thing is only a temporary thing anyway. It's going to disappear one of these days. Correct?
Yeah.
As a disaster sweeps across the world, all insurance companies are going to close. And so then we can't work anymore, right? No, we have to work more than ever. So insurance is unrelated. If you can have insurance on you, that's fine. It's not a sin, but it's not a requirement. If you go to a country where there's no insurance, go anyway. In fact, going to some countries means you probably will get killed. I just recently talked to a Baptist pastor in Brazil, in Manaus. He sold us a medical lunch.
we talked about insurance. And the question kind of comes up that I don't need insurance for that to be a mission pilot.
We carry liability insurance on our airplanes because most countries require that by law.
For the plane.
Just to cover third-party liability, other people.
Okay.
If you hit somebody, then they're covered.
But for ourselves?
But no. We generally, if you carry passengers, they're covered. Yeah. One other thing, we do not usually buy whole insurance on our airplane, which covers the airplane. Like if you have an accident, then the insurance company buys you a new airplane. We generally don't do that because it's so expensive, especially when you're flying in jungle, that in a few years you can pay for a whole new airplane. So we just decided, let's just train the pilots, let's have them be very proficient, and let's only carry liability insurance as needed, according to the laws of the country. And then let's fly as cheap as possible and operate as many hours and help as many people as possible. And in the last 15 years, we have only lost 2 airplanes. One airplane is hijacked in Venezuela. And so, nothing you can do. Insurance won't pay for it anyway. If you're hijacked, insurance says, I'm sorry, you're hijacked. I mean, it wasn't an accident. And so there's nothing we could do. The other airplane did have an accident, and pardon me? No. Arthur was a German missionary pilot. He crashed, and we do have full hull insurance on the airplanes for training. That's different. Training airplanes are very high risk because students are students. And so we carry full insurance on our training airplanes because there's a high risk that something's going to happen. So when Arthur had his accident, they bought us a new airplane. But when we're in the mission field with an experienced pilot, the risks are low. So we lost one airplane. We've never lost a passenger as far as we never had any fatalities. And we recovered all of the airplane instruments, and we recovered the aircraft engine, which is worth 50% of the airplane. And within 3 months, we had a new airplane flying again. So that's the only time we've ever lost an airplane through an accident, was with that one. And we had another one, and God gave us another one in 3 months. And we've been flying 15 years with 26 airplanes. And so if we paid whole insurance, we would have spent so much money on insurance, it would have been much more than what we lost already. So we win. It's like being self-insured. If we lose an airplane, we lose an airplane. But hopefully we don't want to lose a pilot or the passengers, and we never have. The Lord has been very good. We fly 5,000 hours a year. 5,000 hours a year to somebody who doesn't know is a lot of time. It's like flying 24 hours a day for 7 months. Now, nobody flies 24 hours a day, but that means that somewhere in the world, at least 18 hours a day, there's one of our planes in the air. And when we fly that many hours, that's probably 10 times more hours than all of the other Adventist airplanes in the world. So people say, you have a high-risk program. Yeah, we fly 10 times more, so we have 10 times more risk. Because whatever you have 10 times more hours of flying, you carry that much more risk. In any case, we're glad that God has helped us to grow so much, but we learned that if you have proficient pilots that fly a lot, you can fly with volunteers, you can keep the program costs very low, and you can do a tremendous amount of work if you're willing to be a volunteer. If you say, well, I have to be paid a salary, I have to have retirement, I have to have vacation, I have to have full insurance, I have to have everything, you say, there's the air taxi company over there, go get a job over there. They charge for all of their flying. They can afford to pay you. When we get our pilots, we say, we have work to do. You want to work with us? We have work to do. You will fly a lot. You will probably not fly all day long. You will probably fly around 75 hours a month. 75 hours a month is what the airline pilots fly. They're always in the air flying. They fly about 1,000 hours a year. Most of our pilots, when they start working, the work just increases. But they say, well, can you use a part-time pilot? No. We don't. We've occasionally had a couple of pilots that help to deliver an airplane. spent a few months and left again. But our full-time missionary pilots are full-time. And how many years do you have to work until Jesus comes? We tell them, we don't mind if you go open a new program in another country. We don't mind if you go do mission aviation in somewhere else. But you have to work as a mission pilot till Jesus comes. Because the training takes too long. By the time you get 2 years of training, and then you go to the mission field and they give you 6 months of experience training so you can start to fly. And by the time you have that kind of investment, we're not interested in you flying 3 years and leaving. We only want full-time missionary pilots that are willing to work as volunteers till Jesus comes. And that's quite a bit. Yeah, we're asking a lot. That's why we don't have a tremendous amount of missionary pilots. We're adding about 4 airplanes a year, and for a while there we were only adding about 2 pilots a year. But now our flight schools, we have a flight school in Norway, we have a flight school in North America, we have another flight school in Bolivia, and we're opening a flight school in the Philippines. And I would like to see a flight school open possibly in Germany, associated with our light channel, associated with the School of Media Evangelism, which is called College of Media Evangelism. And then we would have a different department, which would be a School of Mission Aviation. And so we would have a group of schools, some for media, some for aviation, and so on. The idea came up, we need to talk about yet, what about partnering with this school? I think it's a great idea. So that you could come to this school, do your initial training, and finish up in either media or aviation. That's a nice idea. And then you can once you get in on it, you're involved in mission, media, airplanes, health evangelism, whatever. In other words, every talented skill has to be used. And it's until Jesus comes. This is a calling for life. Why would we do anything? I can't even imagine. Nobody could offer me any amount of money, any amount, to get another job. $1 million a year? Sorry, don't have time. Because this is the greatest job in the world. Working for God on the very last few months of Earth's history, it is the most sacred job, the most rewarding job ever in history. So, learning how to depend on God and work by Him. So now let's look at some of the details of mission aviation. First of all, there is a growing need in the world. Okay? Papua New Guinea can use more airplanes. Indonesia can work them. Australia needs more airplanes than pilots. We have 2 airplanes right now in Australia. The Solomon Islands, the Guam and all of the South Pacific Islands. Then you have South America needs more airplanes. Africa just needs at least a minimum of 10 more airplanes and pilots. Just to cover 1 airplane per country. And some countries need multiple. Guyana's a little country. And in Guyana we have 4 airplanes, and we've only had 2 pilots. Now we're adding 2 more. So we're going to have 4 airplanes and 4 pilots operating because we have so much work in Guyana, we need 4. And that's a little tiny. What about Brazil? Brazil is not a country. Brazil is a continent. Right? And so when you get there, you got to think, well, over there. But one airplane can only do so much. So we need some in the North Amazon, we need some in the Southern Amazon, Southeast, Southwest Amazon, and you need some on the other side. And so there's places everywhere. And then you think of the other countries. Chile. Chile goes all the way to the tip of South America, right? You know the country of Chile all along the western coast? It goes all the way to the bottom. It almost touches Antarctica. There's people that live in those islands, and there's no medical care. Now, Chile's a very developed country, but it's such a hostile area. How do you live in those little cold islands and get to the hospital back on the mainland? Did you know that Japan needs missionary airplanes? Japan has everything. It's wealthy, very comfortable, but there's little islands up around the side. They don't have medical care there. And it's hard to go across the ocean when you're sick in a little boat when the waves are blowing. You have to have a seagoing vessel to get there, so it's very hard. Canada, up in Montreal, up in those islands of northeast Canada, there's islands up in there with no medical care. We need an airplane up there. So, as you can see, wherever there's isolated peoples, the airplane is a perfect tool. Now some places need helicopters. I didn't bring my briefcase with me right now, but the March issue. Do you all get the magazine here called Adventist World?
Mm-hmm. It's not translated.
In German? I just had an appointment at the Spanish Union with the Union administration, and they also publish it in Spanish. But the March edition has a helicopter on the front. I don't know if you've seen the March edition. The March edition has a helicopter, and that's our helicopter. It's the only helicopter in the Adventist Church. It's operating in the Philippines, and it's a beautiful story. And the nurse, the wife of the pilot, was working in the jungles with Adventist Frontier Mission, and she was getting older and older. She's still a young person, but she was getting older and older, in her maybe mid-20s, high 20s. And her mother said, "Honey, you have to find yourself a husband. You can't work out in the jungles of the Philippines and find yourself a husband. You have to come out. What do you think? You think a husband is just going to drop from the sky?" And then here comes the pilot in a helicopter and lands out of the sky. And she marries him. Yeah. So her husband did drop out of the sky. And it was a great love story. You'll enjoy the article if you see it. In any case, it's been very interesting how God has developed some of our pilots. We have very, very key pilots that are just dedicated. Usually they're married and a solid missionary family. Our chief pilot for the Philippines, they're dedicated for life. This is it until Jesus comes. Our chief pilot for Africa, on that DVD I gave you yesterday called Having Nothing, Having It All, there's a story of Gary and Wendy Roberts, and you will see how they just buried their 4-year-old in Africa. He got malaria. He barely recovered, and then he got malaria the next year. This time he did not recover, and they just buried him. And you'll see the burial taking place in Africa. Normal African ways of burying, where they sing their tribal songs and they sing the hymns of that you know. Anyway, they buried the little child, and they're still there, and they're going to be there for life. And you can see their story there. And so we need dedicated pilots. We have another chief pilot in Bolivia. We have another pilot in Guyana. We have other pilots. And so when you think of the possibility of being a missionary pilot, please be aware that it's long term. There's no short term, I think I'll just do it for a while, and then I'll come back and do something else. It doesn't really work. It's too much investment of time and resources. Now, men can be pilots and women can be pilots. But women, if you want to be a mission pilot, I have 2 daughters that are nurses and pilots. And 1 son. But the younger son is still in school. The other daughters are finished. But one daughter decided to have children, and so I said, then don't continue your training. She just became a private pilot. I said, don't continue your training. Because once you have children, you really cannot, you don't have time to be flying all day long while the children are home. That's not fair on the children. So if you're a young lady and you would like to be a missionary pilot, be aware that being a mother and a mission pilot doesn't work very well. You may have to postpone having children, or maybe not have children. And then you can work all day long picking up patients, doing whatever you have to do, and there's no problem. We will train any young lady that qualifies to be a mission pilot. How do you qualify? We have 4 flight schools. If you go to Norway, you have to study and work in the school of, it's called the Madison Institute of World Mission. If you go there, you go through 3 months of training, then you go to the mission field for 3 months, and then you come back for 3 months. It's 9 months, and then if everything went well, then you can begin your flight training. If you work with us in the United States, you want to go to the U.S., it's more strict. It's difficult to get a permission, to get a visa to get there and study. If you do that, then you have to work for 6 months in a mission field somewhere, and we're going to watch you closely for the possibility of, we want to see you spiritually solid, working as a teamwork. We want to see you have your own spark plug. If we have to get you up, hello, it's 9 o'clock, time to get up, sleepyhead. You shouldn't be a mission pilot. Because the mission pilot has to be the first one in the morning, putting gasoline in the airplane, and at 6 o'clock, you're going. So it's important to be able to have your own internal spark plug. Everybody else can wait, but everybody else may be slow, but the pilot cannot be slow. So you have to work as a team, you have to be spiritually solid, and you have to have your own internal spark plug. If you do, then you can qualify to enter our mission aviation training, and we will pay for the majority of it. You still have to pay part of it. We pay about 60% and you pay 40%. It's about $40 to $45 an hour.
Those 40%.
That's the 40%. And then we cover the hangar, we cover the...
How many hours do you need?
Well, the private pilot is 40 to 50 hours. The instrument rating is 40 to 50 hours, and you need some experience. The total cost will probably be about $2,500, $2,500 for private, and about that much for the instrument rating. So about $5,000. About $5,000 you can finish private and instrument. If you did it commercially, you'd be paying about maybe $15,000. Yeah. What's that?
Licensing.
Well, the private pilot license you would get as you take your check rides and finish the school and your training. You would take your license, and then everything is done in little pieces. The commercial license is required eventually.
Sorry. And you pay 60% from the 5,000.
No,
40%.
that is the 40%. All of the other overhead, the owning, the depreciation of the airplane, and other things we cover. But you just have to pay the gasoline and the insurance and a little bit of maintenance, which is the variable cost of... Yeah. So that every time you fly, you put your own gas in. You pay for your own gas. You pay for little... We have to pay $6,000 a year for insurance on the airplane to have it fully covered. So every little bit, every student that flies has a little bit of money allocated to help pay for the insurance. So we pay for the fixed cost, you pay for the variable cost. And since there's no profit involved, flight school not only pays for everything, they have to make money. So that's why they're more expensive. They can operate at the same cost we can. The only difference is they have to pay their flight instructor more, they have to cover all the costs, and then they have to make some money to make it worth it. And so we're not interested in making money, we're interested in helping you finish. And then when you finish, then the agreement is you will work for us permanently as a volunteer. So that's why you say, well, what if I don't know how to work as a volunteer? Then go to the mission field first and make up your mind, and we want to see you. And if you learn the principles of working in trust by God, then we're happy to have you as a pilot. But we can't afford to train you and then have you say, well, I guess I can't work anymore, I don't know, there's no salary, I don't know anything about this. And so it's too much investment in time. And so far, we've had a very good rate. We've only ever had two young people that at the very end we were disappointed. And they're still fine young people, but they just don't know how to work as a team, and none of my chief pilots said, no, we won't take them. We need teamwork. If the chief pilot says, we want you to do something, what are you supposed to do? I mean, a co-pilot has to obey the captain, right? Because he's in charge. They go, no, but we don't want anybody telling us what to do. I'm sorry, this is almost like the military. The chief pilot has to be able to tell the crew what they need to do. And if you say, well, I believe that I should report to God, that's fine. But I mean, in heaven there's a guy called Gabriel, an angel that directs the choir. And when Gabriel says sing, or the trumpets, they play. There has to be order in heaven. And so in every project you have to have somebody in charge. And you say, well, I believe I should not report to anybody. Then you should go off, be by yourself in the jungle. But if you want to build a teamwork, somebody has the responsibility of being in charge. Even in a husband-wife relationship, to get along equally, but God said if there is a problem and they don't agree, the husband makes the final decision. That's just the way God did it. And if the husband is wise, he will always incorporate his wife. So a wise leadership always incorporates their team. And so the team members always feel included. But somebody has to be able to say, do this, do that, let's do the other. And so things work well when you agree. We had two young people that wouldn't do that. They said, no, we don't believe that is the correct way that God works. sorry, can't use you. Because aviation is more strict on how we report to. There's a chain of command. And once you're a senior pilot and you're operating your own program, then the junior pilots report to you. Because you can have younger pilots working under you, and they're learning, they're in school. When a teacher tells you, turn in a paper for tomorrow, you say, I don't believe I need to report to anybody. Then you don't go to school. Because the teacher has a right to ask you what they want you to ask. So the same thing applies. And so all of that is a kind of like, that's why administration is so hard. Administration is about somehow working out so everybody can work well together. And students report to their teachers, the teachers report to the school administration reports to the board reports to the donor. And so everybody reports to somebody. And that's good, that's healthy. And eventually we all report to God. So in the Philippines, well, when we open up that school, that'll probably be the easiest place for the average person, non-US citizen, to go study. Because the Philippines is so compatible. Any flight instructor, any license in the United States is immediately recognized in the Philippines. I can walk in and pull out my mechanic's license, an inspector license, a flight instructor license, and a flight transport pilot license, lay it on there, and 1 week later I'm fully licensed in the Philippines and operational. That makes it very easy to operate. And yet, when a foreigner wants to come study in the Philippines, they don't require all the things that the United States requires. So we want to open up a school. Yes?
What is the physical requirement for a pilot? For example, like I have an operation on my knee. Does it mean that I cannot be a pilot?
No. Your health in general has to be good. Your eyesight has to be good. Now, what can be the problem with eyes? You can be too nearsighted or farsighted, so that when the doctor checks your eyes, you have to have a current medical exam. If the doctor says you do not qualify according to the medical exam, then you can't get a license. But there's some requirements for airline transport pilots. They have the highest level of requirements. Then commercial pilots are here and private pilots are here. So technically, we require a commercial license eventually. When you become a mature pilot, we require that. But that's not because we do commercial work. We don't do commercial work. We all do private pilot work. So in some countries, for example, if I were to come to Europe, I can get a European license in 1 week. I can go to Germany, I can go to Austria, I can go to Romania, I can put down my license, my US license, pay my fees. There may be an exam, generally there isn't, and they will come validate my license within a week, and I can fly German airplanes or Austrian airplanes or Romanian airplanes based on my US license, agreement between the countries. But they won't give me my airline transport pilot license, they will probably give me a private pilot's license. But my license from the US is airline transport. That's the highest level of license a pilot can get. But they don't want me walking in and taking a job away from a national. So the government may recognize my license, but they may only give me private pilot privileges. That's okay. We don't do commercial work. So in some countries, I hold a commercial. In some countries, I hold an airline transport pilot's license. And in some countries, I only have a private pilot's license. But it's all based on my airline pilot's license. And so if your health is good, if your eyes qualify, what if you're color deficient? Anybody here color deficient? You know what color deficient means? They call it Daltonism. I don't know what they call it. Okay. It means you look at red and green, or you look across the field, and there's red flowers on that little tree, and you can't see them. I can't. I'm color deficient. So when I get up real close, I go, oh, look at the nice red flowers. My wife says, look at those red flowers. I go, where? Right there on that tree. I walk over there and I go, oh, you're right, they are red. I can't, they don't stand out for me because there's 6,000 genes of color deficiency and there's 6,000 combinations. Some people are colorblind. And colorblind people, I've never met one that's totally colorblind, like a dog. A dog can only see black and white. Okay. But most people can see slight variations of color, even if it's not very good. Like me, I'm somewhere in the middle. And so I had to go, when I got my physical, they said, you can't fly at nighttime. So then I went, took an exam, and they shone some lights from the towers, and I got 100% at nighttime. Oh, okay, so at nighttime you can fly. But you can't fly during daytime using only the color gun controls. Then I got my commercial license and I got the commercial waiver. I got my airline license and I got the airline waiver. I had to fly in an airplane right past the tower and then I could see the lights. And they say, what color is that? And what color is that? And what color is that? And I was able to identify all the colors at nighttime. So they said, okay, full privileges at nighttime, and in daytime you have a few little restrictions. So there's a lot of flexibility. By the way, just for your interest, we're running out of time here. We still have some questions to answer. In Japan, they discovered that if they treat you with sound waves, I don't know what they do, your color deficiency goes away. Now, I don't understand it at all. How can sound waves change your genes? But after taking a sound treatment, for the next 6 months, you're fully color capable. Can you understand that? Isn't that weird? Anyway, the brain is strange. But there's also a lens you can put in your eye, a red lens, a little small contact lens. And when you have that lens, you have 100% color vision. But most governments don't accept it. But, pardon me?
This is Japan.
No, this is in anywhere in the world. If you put the contact lens in, you can see 100% on the color charts. But the sound treatment's in Japan. In any case, there's a lot of different ways you can do that. And some countries are very strict. I've had my heart beat and got to Guyana, and they said, we don't allow color deficient pilots in our country. Oh, that means I can't fly here. I said, Lord, you brought me here. I know you have to do something. And so I went. They said, you have to go see an ophthalmologist. So I went to see an ophthalmologist. And I said, oh, by the way, are you familiar with the X-chrome contact? No? It's a little red lens you put in your eye, and you can see perfectly. Really? Never heard of it. I said, loan me that little red paper there. You have little, like cellophane, red cellophane. And I said, you hold it up like this? And she goes, let me see. And she gave me the book of colors. And with a little red cellophane in front of my right eye, I passed all the tests perfectly. She goes, you have perfect vision. And they never raised the issue again. But the Lord worked it out for me. I was trembling. I thought, the Lord brought me here. I've thrown my lot into working in Guyana, and I can't fly. But the Lord worked it out, and I've been flying all these years. So we have to trust God to work things out for us. So, in summary, if you want to be a mission pilot, you can have the option of training yourself. If you have money, you can do your training right here. And after you're finished, you have to be at least a private pilot and at least an instrument rating. An instrument rating, remember, is to be able to keep you safe while flying in bad weather. Okay? If you have those two, we will then put you to work somewhere in the world. At the beginning, if we don't know you, we've never worked with you, you can work alongside one of the pilots until we get to know you better. And as you get experience, then we will assign you responsibilities until you have 500 hours of time and a commercial license. Then you can be on your own after the chief pilot says you're safe. But at the beginning, you may only have 150 hours. An instrument rating and a private pilot, we will still put you to work. But we will say you can only land there, and the chief pilot will say you can only land there. But at least you're doing something useful. And as you fly and do useful work, then you have more experience, and the chief pilot say, now you can land there and there. Now you can land anywhere. And eventually you get released into the world of heavy-duty mission aviation. If you want to go through our flight schools, you have to go serve for 6 months or go through Madison for a year, and then you can get into the program and we will help you finish. Because then we will believe in you, we know you're committed. Those are the two paths that we know of so far. You do the training on your own, or we train you. Okay, are you understanding? Is that clear? There's 4 levels of licenses. I think they developed a 5th now, called a recreational license. But let's talk about the basic 4. Student pilot license, private pilot license, commercial, and airline transport. Okay? Student, private, commercial, airline. What do we require? Just the private. Eventually, a commercial. You have to have an instrument rating. An instrument rating is not a license. It's a rating. It's a training that you get. It's a very hard training. It's harder than the private pilot. It separates what we say the men from the boys. When you have an instrument rating, now you're ready for serious aviation. You can fly in bad weather, you can fly in the rain, you can land almost without anything. And so, that we come to that point then where if you have a private and an instrument rating, definitely come and see us. We're interested. We need you. We need pilots all over the world. But we want committed pilots that understand the mission of the church, that are willing to work. By the way, generally speaking, our young pilots turn out better than our old pilots. Why? Our young pilots are flexible. They can be taught. We've had a couple of the older pilots, and they already have experience. They come in and they say, but I already know everything. and you say, who's the chief pilot? That young man there. Well, I don't want a young man telling me what to do. I know, but he has 10 times more experience than you do. I know, but he's young. So it's been a little bit of an issue. So we've had a couple of older pilots. They've done a good work, but now they work elsewhere. They just couldn't take I'm sorry, I support our chief pilot. Chief pilot is the boss. And the chief pilot says, do that, you have to do that, even if you're twice as old as he is. And that's been a little hard. But it's still possible. I don't ever rule it out, but I tell people ahead of time, and we have at least one pilot here that's a little older, that's just one of the risks, that you're working for a younger person that has a lot of experience, and that person is in charge. And so we have to be humble and just be flexible. But young people who are training, they don't have that problem. They're just new. They're just waiting to be trained, and so it's not a problem. Okay? We have to quit in a few minutes. I'm going to open it up for questions and answers now. You're needed. You're wanted. There are several paths to get there. It's a commitment for life. Male, female, no problem. But you may have some questions. Yes?
Is it cheaper to take a twin-engine plane for long-distance flight than taking a commercial flight?
If you're by yourself, no. But if you're carrying cargo or passengers, yes. We have 2 twin-engine planes that go back and forth to South America, and we are fully loaded. We take broadcast equipment, cameras, we take computers, we take repair parts for the airplanes, we take everything. And if you ship it commercially in a cargo airplane, it takes a month to get out of customs. We take propellers, we take aircraft engines, and so we can just deliver it. The same day we get there, we deliver it, and we go to the next country. And so by the time you add up all the pieces, then you drop off a missionary here, you pick up another one, you take them with you here, and then on the way back home, you pick up people and drop them off on the way back. It's much, much cheaper to have your own airplane than to buy all those tickets and to ship everything commercially. It saves time too a lot. But if you were just going by yourself and an airplane of any kind, generally speaking, a commercial, if there were a commercial airline, like when I come to Europe, I don't fly my airplane. I buy a ticket on the airplane. But when I fly to South America and I have to go Puerto Rico, Martinique, Guadeloupe, Martinique, Grenada, then Guyana, then Venezuela, then Brazil, then Bolivia, then Colombia. And then all of a sudden I change my plans. Something came up and I have to go to a different country. Can you imagine how difficult that would be to do commercially? And so I always carry things with me and I work out my trip. And sometimes things change en route and I pick up a couple extra people and I go to a different country that I had planned just because I have the airplane that's easy to do en route. I can stop. Could you drop off something in Brazil as you go back home? Yeah, sure. We load the airplane up and we drop it off in Brazil, and it pays for itself over and over and over again. Okay? The flexibility plus the speed is very important, but the cost is very, very good, if especially the kind of work that we do.
How do you generate revenue?
How do we generate revenue?
Yeah, you said the commercial airline can generate revenue. How do you do that?
Well, the commercial airlines,
Yeah.
we don't. We never do commercial work. In Papua New Guinea, the Adventist airplanes, they do commercial work. And in Indonesia, they do commercial work. But we've decided never to do commercial work. Everything we do is for free. I've had a couple pilots that started to charge, and we fired them. Because it misrepresents our program. They said we needed money, so I had to charge. Then that was the older pilots. They don't understand. This is a faith. If you don't have money, get on your knees. Yeah. Everybody knows we work for free, and it's just a wonderful taste. And there's no competition. Who can compete with you? Because everything is free. We take the patients for free, we do everything. Some government offices have offered to pay for gasoline. I say, well, if you have gasoline you want to give, you can make a donation to our organization, but we won't charge you. So some places do that. They just say, here's 50 gallons of gasoline just to help you because you help us so much. Thank you very much. So we accept donations, but we don't charge. And we don't ask for it. Just if they voluntarily do it, we say yes. We've had governments offer to give money and pay for everything. We say no. Because then they say, then it's politics. They say, this is our program. We did this. So no, we don't want to get involved in that. But if they want to make a gift of some gasoline and leave it with us, that's okay. It doesn't happen very often, but when it does, we say it. Okay, another question?
Often I wanted to make a donation to gospel ministry, and I don't know the process. If I'm in a foreign country, I get donation from my ministry, and I want to, instead of giving it to conference, I want to forward it to gospel ministry. How do I do that?
If you look on our webpage, gospelministry.org, you can have contact information there. We have 30 organizations in the world, and we're adding new ones every year. So if you have 30, for example, in Austria we used to have an account. We were going to do our German television broadcast here, but eventually we moved it to Germany. So we closed the account here, and we have an account, several accounts in Germany. So most people in Europe can easily give to a local bank. Like if you're in Spain, you can give to easily wires across to Germany. But we have in Romania, we have in Hungary, we have in Holland, we have in Germany. So it's easy. If you're in Asia, we have a bunch there. If you're in Africa, we have some there, and in North America also. Okay, we kind of keep it on the continent. Makes it easy. No more questions? Okay, let me ask you a question. How many of you are seriously hoping someday to be a missionary pilot? I know not everybody, because some of you are just interested. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? Very good. Well, thank you. Just remember that when you apply, or when you contact us, be patient with us, and be impatient with us. We have one person that coordinates applications. That's Norbert's wife, Norbert Christia, that was with me, my Romanian German assistant. And his wife is a coordinator. But she gets so many applications for everywhere. She processes them, then she forwards them to the directors of the projects. And sometimes they're so busy they don't answer right away. So if you don't get an answer immediately, call again. Call Bobby. I didn't get an answer. I didn't get an answer. And if nothing happens, then call me and chase me down. And call me and say, I applied, I've waited for a month, nothing is happening. What did you apply for? I applied to be a teacher at one of your schools. Is it an English-speaking country, or Spanish, or is it French? No, Spanish, okay? I will call those guys and ask them to please review your application. And I will help you. I step in when things start slowing down. Okay? Otherwise, the normal process works. If you'll just call Bobby and talk to her, she will make sure things happen. But if you don't call her, you may think, well, I guess they don't need me. That's not true. We need you. Or if you want to be in mission aviation, she will tell you the process. Serve in one of our projects, any project, for 6 months, come back with a recommendation, and you're approved to get into one of our schools. Okay? Let's stand for prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for the time we've had together. Thank you, Lord, that you've given us the privilege of using our skills, be it health education, health evangelism, be it media, desperately need media, medical work, we desperately need that, pilots also. Any major skill, Lord, is needed in your work. And it is our delight to use those skills you've given us to help advance your work. Just show us, lead us, give us opportunities. And as we move forward, we know the Red Sea will open, and we know that your Holy Spirit will direct us and guide us. Thank you so much for this weekend, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.